I thought in this video I'd show you some of my older diesels in action. The ones that have the old ringfield motors in. I've got a few Lima and Hornby ones that are the old style with the ringfield motors and the traction tyres. Not, well, they're a bit looked down upon by a lot of people these days who like the central motor with drive to both axles and a really heavy weight in the middle, and I can understand why, but I thought I'd just show you a few of my older locos, and don't run diesels so often. In fact, this very first one I'm showing you, or nearer the camera, is a Lima Class 55 or Deltic. In the background is a Bachmann Deltic. Now, when the Lima Deltic came out, I don't know how well it was received. It was back in the mid to late 70s, I think. And some people said it was HO scale, which is 3.5 millimeters to the foot. Well, it's not. It's a funny scale. It's not quite 4 millimeters to the foot, because compared to the Bachmann model, it's nearly a centimetre shorter. And it sits probably about a millimetre or two lower, and maybe it's a millimetre narrower, but it's still quite a big beast. You know, it's still quite a long locomotive. What I've discovered, though, what is amazing, is that Lima Deltics love the heat wave, because this model hadn't been run for probably for a few years. In fact, maybe I'd run it on and off occasionally, and I remember that every time I used to run it in the garage here at home, I often used to have to clean its wheels beforehand. It's almost like the damp, cool atmosphere in the garage did not suit its wheels, and I would have to clean it more regularly than most locomotives to get it to run smoothly. But try it out in this hot weather we're having at the moment, and it's very dry, and maybe the atmosphere has done something to the locomotive to really warm it up, and it's running better than it's ever done before. And hopefully I will show it running alongside the Bachmann model in a few minutes. But to put this in perspective, I'm not sure how old my model is. I've owned it for about 20 years, and I got it for only about £15 from the second-hand cabinet of a model railway shop. Okay, this is going back 20 years. You wouldn't be able to pick up a Lima Deltic for £15 now, I shouldn't think. You'd probably be spending at least twice that. But imagine you spent, say, £40 on your Lima Deltic. Is it any good? Okay, well, let's see mine running. Might help if I went the right way. That's operating with my Gauge Master feedback controller. I think you'd have to say that was a fairly smooth start. And I haven't serviced the motor. I haven't done anything. I haven't cleaned the wheels. A lot of people have talked about replacing the Lima, what they call the pancake motor, with a CD motor to give smoother running. But to be honest, having seen this one, I don't think I need to. It also gives a nice little growl, which is very diesel-like. It's currently running at about 20% on my feedback controller, and I reckon it's going at about a scale, I don't know, 50 miles an hour, something like that, and it's very smooth. I've now turned it up to 30%, and it's probably doing about a scale 100 miles an hour, I reckon. I just did a calculation, and based on the scale 1 to 76 of the layout and its dimensions, the Deltic at 30% is travelling at a scale speed of about 95 miles an hour, which is pretty close to the speed they would be travelling on the East Coast Main Line. And that says a lot for the power of the Lima motor. It's having no problem pulling those 6 coaches, and it also says that the gearing is perhaps a little bit high, because if it can do 95 miles an hour on 30% power, it probably does nearer to 200 miles an hour on full power. But I'm never going to run it on full power. There's bound to be a derailment or something like that. Anyway, let's bring it into the station and then compare it with the Bachmann model. Fairly smooth stop there. I'll just move the Bachmann model forward a bit. If it will, oh, going the other way. Now the Bachmann model is silent, but apart from that, is it smoother? Yes, it probably is a bit smoother. You'll see a slight jerk when the Lima model starts, but I'm going to try and get them to set off at the same time, at the same speed. That takes a bit of fiddling. That requires me to set up the simulator with the simulated acceleration on the inner loop. So the Bachmann version is going to go the same direction as the Lima model, and I'm going to try and get them to accelerate at the same rate and try and do it smoothly, whilst at the same time operating the camera. Wish me luck. Now that Bachmann model runs superbly, and if I were to look at it closely I would say, oh, it's much better than the Lima model. But I paid, well, I bought that second hand for about £70 not that long ago. The Lima model, remember, I only paid about £15 for, and the model is probably 40 years old. It could be a lot more than that, because as I say, I bought it second hand. It was quite tatty when I bought it, and I repainted it, partly because I don't like the look of the sort of self-coloured plastic of the original. But there was a fairly smooth crawl, bring it up to the Bachmann version, and for the amount I paid for it and for the way it's running at the moment, I'm absolutely over the moon with it. And it just seems that the warm weather has done it the world of good, because it never used to run this well, and it hasn't been touched in, well, it hasn't been given a proper clean and a service for years and years. Now here's a Lima Class 37 in BR green. The previous owner has weathered the underframe a bit and given it a coat of matte black by the look of it. They've also, for some reason, cut off the front coupling. I know the couplings on the Lima locomotives are rather big and ugly, but at the moment it looks a bit bare. It really needs some detail on the buffer beam, I think, to make up for the lack of coupling. Or I could just attach a new coupling to it. Anyway, like the Deltic, it hasn't been run for ages, so it might not be ultra smooth when it first starts, but let's give it a look. It's hauling a rake of Lima six-wheel milk wagons, and it makes quite a nice sort of growling noise, as befits a Class 37. One thing I like about Lima diesels is the mechanisms do produce a bit of a sort of noise from the gear wheels, and there's a bit of just a nice sort of mechanical sound that sounds like, you know, engineering at work. Okay, it might be better if it was absolutely silent, but if a train is going to make a noise, if a motor's going to make a noise, it's nice for it to make a noise that is actually sort of what you might expect. On the outer line we have a Lima Class 40, and I'll get that going on a passenger train. I must admit, again, this hasn't been run much recently, but last time I ran it, it was very smooth. Again, it produces a nice Lima hum or growl or whine, I don't know what you quite call it, from the gears. Let's see how well it's running. Fairly smooth start. I've set the power to 30%, which was the power I set the Deltic to when it was doing a scale to 100 miles an hour. And I'd say the Class 40 is probably doing about a scale 50 miles an hour. Much more sensible. And there goes the Class 37 on the other track, going quite fast. Could slow it down a bit. And now I've cranked up the Class 40 to 40% power, and that looks like a pretty good express pace to me. Probably a scale 60 or 70 miles an hour. Fairly smooth stop there. Didn't quite get the front on film, sorry about that. There we go. Oh, it's blurred anyway. That my Lima powered locos are running very smoothly. There's one exception. This is a Dapol rail bus model which I've powered with a Class 33 chassis. That's the HO gauge, not the OO gauge. The HO gauge Class 33 chassis fits in quite well. Of course, it's totally unprototypical, but I got the idea from a video on the Budget Model Railways site on YouTube, and I'll show you this one. It definitely needs a bit of a kick to get it going. I've got the power on 15%, and you'll see the rail bus, rail car, whatever you want to call it, going pretty rapidly, probably about a scale 50-60 miles an hour. Probably the sort of top speed it would ever do. That's just on 15%. Turn it up to 20%, 25%, and you'll get a scale speed of probably about 100 miles an hour. Yeah. I think it's safe to say that the HO gauge Lima models of the 1970s were basically just toys. That's 50% speed. That's probably the fastest a train has ever run on the British Isles, I would reckon. But it's only meant to be a bit of fun, that one. I'll slow it down, see if we can get a smooth stop in the station. Yeah, reasonable stop. If I was going to take this seriously, I think I'd try and fit one of the CD motors in that chassis. But am I going to bother? I don't know. I'll think about it.